Hello, everyone. Welcome into Yelling from the Couch. I'm Brent Humphreys. On this episode, we preview the EKU UK football matchup this Saturday from Kroger Field at 3 o'clock on the SEC Network Plus and ESPN Plus. My guest is Vince Stover from the Sports Stove podcast. You can check him out on X or Twitter at Sports Stove. He hosts the Sports Stove podcast. Then they have a local hour on Monday nights where they talk EKU. And then he hosts a podcast with his dad on Wednesdays where they just talk all different kinds of sports. And on Sunday, they have the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show. So go check them out. Support those podcasts. I want to thank him for coming on. And we'll be right back with Vince Stover right after this. At this time, I'd like to welcome from the Sports Stove podcast, Vince Stover. Welcome to the show, Vince. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Ready to talk a little UK-EKU for this Saturday?
Yes, sir. Yeah, very much so.
So last week was a tough week for EKU in Cincinnati as the Colonels fell to the Bearcats 66-13. Was the game as bad as the final score indicates?
No, I don't think so. And I wouldn't even call it a bad week when you talk about the amount of money that EKU was able to make going up to Cincinnati. But no, the score. I mean, Cincinnati handled EKU. There's no question about that. Really early on in the game, when it kind of got out of hand, EKU was playing well, but then they would make one big mistake, and that resulted in a 50-yard touchdown and a 39-yard touchdown, those kinds of things. And when you do that, it's just not going to go well, especially against a team like Cincinnati, a team in the Power Five. They can't do that again this week against Kentucky for sure.
Last season, EKU went 4-1 in the WAC-A-Sun, 7-5 overall, winning the conference, making their first FCS playoff appearance since 2014 before falling in the first round to Gardner-Webb. Do you think this year's team will build off of last season's success?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're only 1 week in, of course, but the way this team is built, Coach Wells has done a phenomenal job of not just developing what he has in place, but also, of course, adding through the transfer portal. He's strengthened the team, I think, from last year. They lost some important pieces through graduation and a couple that transferred, but overall, I think they're as good or better than last year. And it all comes down to Parker McKinney, the quarterback. You got a guy like that back there, a lot of good things can happen. So between him on offense and then the defense, last year, the rushing defense was horrible. I mean, they allowed over 400 yards in a game, over 300 yards in another game. I mean, it was just really, really bad. And against Cincinnati, they actually held their own against the run game. And Emory Jones is a rushing quarterback. They were able to hold him, generally speaking, in control. So I think if the run defense is good, I think that EKU can definitely repeat and hopefully get a little further in the playoffs.
So you mentioned Parker McKinney, the offense go as he goes. He's on pace to get – do you think he'll get his 10,000 passing yard this week? He needs 106.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, all he has to do is get the ball in Jaden Smith's hands, and he'll get that 106. He's a dynamic receiver. But Parker – now, granted, I don't mean to diminish Parker. He's been around for a long time. He's taken advantage of every opportunity to play, and he's played for several years. But he's got every record in the EKU books. And, yeah, I think 10,000, I think he gets that this week. And, Parker's something special. I mean, we've seen a lot of quarterbacks come in and out throughout the state and at UK and at EKU. And I'll tell you what, there's something about this kid. He is, well, I say kid, he's a grown man, but he's just poised. He doesn't get rattled by anything. He's athletic, and he doesn't look it at all, but he's athletic, and he's got some move to him as well. So He's a special kid, and he's the kind of kid that can do something special at a college like EKU, where he can come through. And I think I don't think they're going to win against Kentucky. I don't mean to jump ahead, but I think Parker's the kind of quarterback that can keep EKU in games like a game against Kentucky.
And you can't blame the kid for taking every advantage he can to stay as long as he can, right?
Definitely no. It's funny. I talked with I messaged with the quarterback that he broke the guy's records last year, and I shot a message to the guy to see if he wanted to come on my show, and he was going to, but it was during hurricanes in Florida, and it didn't work out. But no one blames Parker. No one scoffs at the things that Parker has done. And I think if he was not a good kid, that might be different. But he's a wonderful kid, and he's earning everything that he has.
So besides Parker McKinney, who would be the key players to watch out for this Saturday for EKU?
Yeah, so let's start on offense. Braden Sloan's the starting running back, and he's got a lot of talent. He's going to do your kick returns as well, so you'll see him a fair amount. But really in the backfield, Joshua Carter seems to be standing out. He's the second string running back, but they're going to rotate through these guys. Josh Carter's brother is Michael Carter. He plays for the New York Jets. And you can just see how much Josh sees the field when he's running. Last week, he had over 70 yards at Cincinnati. He's a big kid, but he can make one move and then he runs downhill. He's not going to dance around a whole lot. So I think Joshua Carter's a guy you got to watch for. Jaden Smith, the receiver, he's an elite receiver. He could play at Kentucky. He could play, I think, anywhere out there. And he chose to stick around this year, which I was really surprised by. But he's a phenomenal athlete, catches the ball, and he's quick too. So I think Carter and Jaden Smith are the guys to watch for on offense, outside of Parker, of course. Defensively, Frankie West, he's a transfer in. He was the top JUCO player last year. He was out because of injury against Cincinnati, so he didn't play. So this is the first time we're going to see him on the field for EKU. Everything that I hear, everything that I've seen through the practices, this kid is the real thing. So he's going to be super effective as cornerback. And then, and I'll just go to the other side at cornerback too. The guy that filled in for him last week, Kiare McGlure, he's a freshman. And last week he got thrown into the starting lineup and he played so well. He's playing on special teams too, but as a freshman to come in and play the way he played against Cincinnati, because Kentucky's receivers are really, really good. And so these DBs are going to have to do their job well. So I think Frankie and Kiare are the guys to watch on the EKU defense.
You mentioned Kiare McGlure. I believe you had him on your podcast this past week, right?
Yeah, I did. It was a great interview.
There was I got a kick out of it. There was a little bit of technical difficulties that you were having getting him on. And you were asking if he was on, and I think at one point he said, "All right," and it kept going, "All right." I got a little kick out of that. I've had plenty of technical difficulties as well. It happens, but
oh man, I tell you, this is the first year that I've done that show live. In the past, I've always recorded it and cut it together and just put the audio out. But I've got a defensive lineman, Ryan Jackson, co-host with me this year. And so it was just easier to do everything live. And it was, I'm always scared when we bring a guest on, especially when Coach Wells comes on, because he's not super technologically savvy. But you never know what you're going to get when they pop on. And that was the first issue we had this year, audio-wise. But yeah, it was, thankfully, we got through it and we're able to talk to Kiare.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good interview and everything. I just, like I said, I got the kick out of the little, But the game is exclusively on the SEC Network Plus and ESPN Plus, Saturday at 3 from Kroger Field. EKU is one of two FCS teams to play two FBS teams this year. Is this scheduling to help them prepare for the conference foes?
I don't think so, and I'll explain what I mean by that. First of all, again, it's a whole lot of money. Between Cincinnati and Kentucky, I think EKU is bringing in $900,000, so that's a pretty big deal for the university. On top of that, what it does the most for EKU is helps them when it comes playoff time. If they don't win the conference, their schedule has to be tough. 2 years ago, they got left out of the playoffs because they did not play a tough non-conference schedule, and so that's the only reason they got left out. So now Matt Roan, the athletic director, he's on the committee and all that kind of stuff, so he knows exactly what they have to do, and it does help them prepare for the conference. Playing that level of competition is great. Plus, it gets eyes on the program. Scouts are seeing players and things like that. They're there to scout guys at Kentucky. Well, they're going to see the EKU guys there too. So it all works out in a number of different ways. But financially and ultimately the playoffs, having that strength of schedule, those are the two biggest things I think that have guys like Kentucky. I mean, last year they played Bowling Green State and Eastern Michigan. And that was an upgrade from what they did the year before. And they almost beat Eastern Michigan, and they did beat Bowling Green. So to play Cincinnati and Kentucky, it's a whole nother level of competition. And the players love it, man. They're ready for it. They know it's a tough task, but they're super excited about the opportunities that Coach Wells and Matt Rowan and EKU has given them.
Oh yeah, you play Kentucky and Cincinnati. It's probably some of the biggest teams that they'll face in some of their careers.
Oh yeah, and you got to remember, a lot of these guys are from Kentucky and Ohio.
Yeah.
So like they're playing close to home, or their family gets to see it. I mean, the families travel anyways, but the extended families get to come out and see, and high school friends, all that kind of stuff. It's really neat for them.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned they played Bowling Green last year and beat them in, I think it was 7 overtimes, right?
7 overtimes, yeah.
That was a heck of a win right there.
Yes, it was. Yeah, they still talk about it. I mean, they don't live in the past, but they have not forgotten that 7 overtime game.
When a bigger school pays you to come to their home field and you beat them, it's just got to be that much sweeter for the team getting paid and getting the victory.
Definitely.
So EKU, they are in the UAC conference.
Yeah.
Is this the first year of that conference? It was.
Yeah.
The MAC, or not the MAC, the WAC and the ASUN combined.
Right. Yeah, it was the ASUN WAC Challenge is what they called it. Then they formed the UAC. They added one or two other teams into it that were not in the ASUN WAC stuff before, with the intention of getting the approval to go up to FBS, which did not happen. So, but the conference it's a tough conference. It's definitely tougher than what they've faced to this point as far as conference play goes.
What do you think their chances are of winning this conference this season?
It's pretty solid. Now listen, there is definitely some really tough talent and opponents in the UAC. You got to watch out for the Texas team. That's always going to be a tough challenge. But as far as it goes, generally speaking, EKU is there. Now, this is their year. And what I mean by that is with Parker in his final year at quarterback, and this is the year to do it. They've got all the talent in place. They should be able to make a run in the playoffs. Like if they're going to do it anytime, I say that, I mean, who knows what they add next year, all that kind of stuff. But that being said, this is the year to do it with the talent that they do have in place. But Stephen F. Austin has been solid. They went through some changes and they've been hurt with transfer portal and stuff like that too. But Stephen F. Austin is probably the team that I always look at and go, okay, if they can take care of them, they can definitely take the conference again.
Yeah, with that transfer portal, you never know from year to year who you're going to have.
Right.
But so you think EKU could make a deep run in the playoffs if they get to the playoffs in the FCS?
Yeah, I think so. And again, it's a little hard to tell from just 1 week and playing an opponent like Cincinnati.
Right.
But that being said, they got the pieces. If they stay healthy, they've got what they need to go and make a run. They're such a deep team. They're not just 11 on offense, 11 on defense. They've got multiple levels in a lot of these positions. Offensive line, if they don't stay healthy there, that's going to be a problem. But outside of that, they seem to be pretty well stacked at most positions. So, yeah, I mean, health is everything, of course, but I think they can. And I know I'm a little biased. I don't hide from that. But that being said, yeah, they're a really solid team, and they should be able to make a run this year.
That offensive line will have a tough task coming up this Saturday with Kentucky's defensive line. They were pretty impressive last week.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, they're and I'm not saying this to knock any players, but EKU, the outside guys are really good. Both of them have potential to play at the next level. Josiah Ezrium, he last year was his first year playing right tackle, playing offensive line in college, and
Wow.
he came into EKU as a defensive lineman, made the shift over to offensive line last year. And last year, at the end of the season, he got a 6th-round grade from NFL scouts. Now he came back, of course, and so hoping to bump that up to 4th round or somewhere in that range. But the scouts love him. And then on the other side, Peyton Collins, he's an All-American. He's started as a true freshman. He's a really good left tackle. Those guys are solid. The interior guys, they're transfers, they're guys who are getting their first real opportunity at EKU, and there's question marks there. And so when nobody at EKU will tell you this, but they feel very confident on the edges, and there's a little bit of concern or just unknown when it comes to the interior linemen. So I think if UK they're going to be a little bigger and a little faster and a little stronger, but they're going to have success if they can penetrate through the middle of the offensive line there, put pressure up the middle. That's going to cause a lot of problems, obviously, for the run game. It's also going to get people in Parker's face as well on the pass game. So yeah, you're right. It's going to be a handful for the O-line this week for EKU,
especially with big Deion Walker right over the middle, right there for Kentucky, the big defensive tackle. He was he manhandled the team last week, took on 2 blockers. So I mean, if the interior line's the issue for EKU, it doesn't sound like it's going to be a good day for, like you said, the run. Parker.
It's going to be a long Saturday. Yeah.
So what kind of offense are you expecting EKU to run this Saturday against Kentucky?
I think it's going to be a lot of quick passes. We didn't get to see last week EKU try to stretch the field that often. They've got a guy, Hensley. He's a receiver, came over from Wake Forest. He's supposed to be a guy that can do that. Last week, we just didn't see a whole lot of it. So, and I think the reason why is pressure from the D line. So that means getting the ball out fast, quick stuff over the middle. I expect to see the running backs get a little bit more involved in the pass game than what they were last week as well. Last year, we saw it, especially Braden Sloan. He would get out in the pass game more. So I think offensively, you're going to see a lot of quick stuff early on, but I think you're going to see them take some shots too, to try to stretch that defense out a little bit. They want to establish the run, but again, and I don't know. They're constantly rotating the running back, and I wish they would let one guy kind of get his footing and go. But that being said, they're smarter and they get paid more than I do, so I'm sure they know what they're doing. If they can get the run game going, it's going to be hard for the UK defense. But I mean, that's going to be, typically speaking, when you have Parker McKinney at quarterback, your pass game is going to lead the way. So a lot of quick stuff to try to avoid that pass rush coming from UK.
Yeah, I agree. I believe that if they have any chance of any kind of success, I don't think they're going to win the game by no means, but it's going after those DBs, because that front 7 is really stout for UK, and the DBs are probably the weak point of the defense early this season.
Sure.
UK is 5-0 all the time in the series against EKU. The last time these teams faced off was 2017. UK won 27-16. 2 years prior, EKU took the Cats to OT. UK pulled it out 34-27, thanks to a touchdown to Dorian Baker. Kentucky scored 21 unanswered after being down 14 to escape a huge upset. Do you think this game will be close like the last two?
I mean, I hate to say this, but no, I don't think so. I think it could be. I think there's potential for it, but Kentucky is a different team than they were in those years. And listen, I grew up in Tennessee, so so I
Ooh.
can't say that I've ever had a lot of love for Kentucky football. But that being said, it is a different team than what it was. Mark Stoops has done a great job with the program and has built it up. I think that it'll be closer than the Cincinnati EKU game, just because everybody's got a week under their belt. But I mean, I think you're still looking at probably, I would assume when the line comes out, you're looking at a 20 to 30 point line. And I think the game could be within a couple scores, maybe 2 or 3 scores.
Yeah, the last I checked, I believe Kentucky was a 31.5-point favorite.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any chance EKU could cover that?
I think so. I really do. And I mean, I guess part of this is if I wasn't an EKU fan, I don't know that I'd say that. But that being said, no, I think they can. I think that they look better this week than they looked last week. And honestly, UK, Leary is he's a good quarterback, obviously. But last week they faced Emory Jones, who was a very mobile quarterback. EKU does better when the quarterback is not quite as mobile. And even though Leary can move, that's not what he does. It's not what he's known for. So I think UK plays into EKU's strengths a little better than Cincinnati does. And that's why I think it'll be a little closer. But I'd say, I don't know, I'd say UK wins by I'll say 23.
I like it. I think that Stoops will kind of show a little, mercy considering Walt Wells was on the coaching staff and CJ Conrad, Maxwell Smith played for him. They're both on the EKU coaching staff. So I think maybe he'll let off the gas a little bit if it gets to that point. But
right.
Once again, Stoops early in the season, his teams have historically struggled. So we'll see how that goes.
You mentioned it. I mean, there's a lot of camaraderie between these two staffs. Not only was he an assistant, but I mean they communicate throughout the year. They help each other out in different ways. Wells and Stoops, and then like you said, Maxwell and CJ being part of the staff now too. These two programs, they don't hate each other. Like they actually get along really, really well. And I think you're right. I think if you're looking at it, I don't gamble, but I think if you're looking at it from a gambling perspective, the chances of EKU covering are higher for the fact that Stoops isn't going to try to run. It's not going to be like what Oklahoma did last week, 73-0. Like they're not going to run it up on people quite as much. And again, I think EKU is a really good football team, and I don't think I'm being blinded by my bias when I say that. So I think there's a chance that this one is a little bit more entertaining than what we saw from the Ball State game last week at UK or from the Cincinnati game for EKU last week.
So you don't think there's any chance that Walt Wells will be over there having a meltdown a la Butch Jones in that Oklahoma game?
I don't think so. Of course, Wells had his heart attack last year, so he's trying hard to stay as calm as possible and and handle everything smoothly. So no, I don't think so. I think this is I think they're all aware of what they're facing and are prepared for whatever comes. And honestly, I asked Ryan Jackson, the EKUD lineman, about this a couple of weeks ago, but I know they don't want to admit that moral victories are a thing, but the reality is you come into UK, if you get the win, man, that's phenomenal. But at the end of the day, you can walk away with moral victories if you come out and play well, even if you lose by several scores. If you come out and play well and get better than last week and get ready for next week, it is a moral victory for EKU, and they don't have anything to lose coming in to Kroger Field this weekend. It's all gravy for them. So they just got to come in and play their best football.
Yeah, nothing to lose. This won't hurt any of their playoff chances or anything like that. And they're getting a payday for coming up there and the experience. Huge for the team.
Yeah.
I think Kentucky will win the game, of course. My prediction would be 42-13. I think that they cover. But yeah, that's what I think for the game.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'd like to think that EKU can get a couple touchdowns this week. They only got one last week. I'm hoping that they can at least hit 20 points this week. I think that EKU's in the 40s as well. Maybe I'd say 40. I'd go 46-20 if I had to predict the score.
Like it. Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking a little EKU UK and joining me today.
Man, I'm glad to do it. We talk EKU every week on the show, and of course we're heavily football focused right now, but we'll get into basketball season as well, and we even cover baseball as well. So I appreciate you asking me to come on. I always enjoy talking EKU and doing my best to support these student athletes, get them as much exposure as we can. So I appreciate you inviting me on.
Absolutely. If you want to plug your shows and where we can find you at, if you go right ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So it's the Sports Stove podcast. Right now, I actually do 3 episodes a week. So my EKU show is on Monday nights. We go live at 8 o'clock on YouTube. The audio is available wherever you get podcasts following the program. I actually do a show with my dad on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock where we just talk all things sports. We cover NFL, college football, Major League Baseball. And then I also host the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show on Sunday nights, but that's wrapping up with the fantasy baseball season coming to an end. So we stay good and busy, but we got it out there, YouTube, podcasts, wherever you listen to stuff, the Sports Stove podcast. And we always appreciate people tuning in and do our best to put out quality content.
Well, thank you. I got one more question. I just thought of it.
Yeah.
Are there any NFL players that went to EKU on current roster?
Yeah, so Matthew Jackson is a safety for the Tennessee Titans. He is undrafted free agent, got signed this year after the draft, and made the roster. We're super proud of Matt. He's a phenomenal guy. Then outside of that, I think the other guys are all practice squad guys. Tim Boyle, quarterback with the Jets. TK McClendon is a D lineman. He's on the Titans practice squad. And Willie Taylor, who played in the XFL this past season, I believe he's on the practice squad with the Jaguars as well. But yeah, Matt Jackson, dude, he's talking about a fun interview. Matt's a great kid. And we had him on the show a couple weeks ago. Actually, the day before roster cutdowns, we had him on the show. He didn't know if he was going to make the team or not. And we're so happy for him that he did. So if you watch a Titans game, you'll see him on special teams. You won't see him probably playing safety a whole lot this year. But yeah, he's out there, and this year is the hope for the draft. I mean, the reality is there's a couple guys this year that should get drafted next year. I don't think we'll see anybody in the top 3 rounds, but there's potential for some guys to get opportunities next year. And that's what Coach Wells is trying to do, build the program to the point where now we've got guys consistently going to the league. Nice.
Well, hopefully they'll get some drafted next year, and there'll be a little bit more Colonels in the NFL next season.
Yes,
Tim Bull, he was a recurring character in the Hard Knocks series.
Yeah.
If you watch any of that or not. Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate your time and coming on here and chatting.
Man, I really do appreciate you inviting me on. Anytime you need talk some more EKU, just let me know.
All right. I appreciate it. We'll see you.
Sir. Have a good one.
You too.
My thanks to Vince Stover from the Sports Stove podcast for coming on and chatting UK-EKU. Really appreciate him coming on, taking this time to have a good conversation about previewing this game. Once again, you can check him out at Sports Stove on X/Twitter. You can check out the Sports Stove podcast on Wednesdays, the Sports Stove Local Hour on Mondays, and the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show on Sundays. You can catch those on YouTube and wherever you can find podcasts. Really appreciate him coming on. Thanks for your time, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Yay!